Good evening and welcome to Debate Night. My name is Rinus Oosthoek and I'm the Executive Director of the Salem Chamber of Commerce and Civics. And it's the civics part that we're doing today because we always love helping the community, the residents, the businesses to learn who is running for office and then, of course, to help you make a decision on who you vote for, who will get into office. We have been involved in things like this since 1912 when we were formed by a merger by the Salem Merchants Association and the Salem Civic Association. So our history goes even further back than that, but that's what we call our birthday. Tonight's debate will be moderated by David Olson. Some of you might still recognize him because he's the former editor-in-chief of the Salem News and currently with Wayside Trailers, and we want to thank David for participating again. We want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Frederick E. Berry Institute at Salem State University for helping with the debate. Yes, please, go ahead. Give them a round of applause. And both groups will help us with the timekeeping for tonight's debate. I also want to thank Salem Access TV, who is once again putting this live on television and again making it available at a later date for streaming online, which is very helpful for anybody who cannot be here. And then I want to welcome the candidates, of course, all their supporters, the Salem Chamber of Commerce membership, and all residents and voters in attendance tonight. We're looking forward to a positive and informative exchange of information and ideas. We have collected questions from our membership. We have collected questions from the League, from the Fred Berry Institute, and we will be collecting questions tonight from the audience, so I will be coming around once Dave gets started with the debate. And if you have questions you want Dave to consider, please hand them back to me and I'll get them to Dave. There's only one person in the room, though, that decides what questions are being asked, and that's Dave. Nobody else, so nobody else can be blamed, Dave. It's just you. And Dave tends to be pretty good at getting a variety of questions in. And for tonight's debate, we'll start with 1 minute opening statements. We have had a little lottery on who goes first, who goes second, and then followed by the questions of the moderator. The questions, every candidate will get 60 seconds to answer, and the order will be decided by Dave once we get started. The moderator will ask questions, the same question to all candidates, so you'll get 6 times a minute on the same topic. Time limits, once again, will be enforced by our timekeepers from the League and from Salem State, and we're very thankful. Right now, one thing I want to ask everybody, make sure your cell phone is off or silent, because there's nothing worse than Salem Access TV and for the candidates and all of a sudden getting a different ring from a different movie or from a different musician going off while they are focusing on what to say to all of you. I want to thank tonight's sponsors, the Salem Witch Museum, Eastern Bank, Peabody Essex Museum, Salem State University, North Shore Bank, and Harbor Light Homes, because they are making this debate possible. And I want to thank the Hawthorne Hotel for making this room available to us again. And finally, I want to ask you all to only applaud on a few times, once immediately after the candidates have given their introductions, once at the end of the forum, and now when I welcome our moderator, Dave Olson.
Hi, everybody. We drew lots for the opening statements, and we start with Ty Hapworth. 1 minute, Ty.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, the League of Women Voters, the Fred Berry Institute of Politics, and the Hawthorne Hotel for putting this on. And then most importantly, I want to thank all of you for coming out here tonight. It is October in Salem. It's difficult to get in here. Appreciate all of your engagement and staying informed here. If you have any concerns or comments or questions about traffic and parking, Councilor Prosnewski has agreed to take all of those emails from you all. My name is Ty Hapworth. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an Army veteran. I'm a Microsoft commercial executive, and for the last 4 years, I've been one of your 4 counselors at large. Service is something that's important to me. It's what drove me to run the first time. I had a first sergeant in the Army who told me that any idiot can point out a problem, but leaders make themselves part of the solution. I think we have a group of people up here on the stage that have tried to make themselves a part of the solution. I think we have people in the audience who are all part of the solution. I see you all volunteering out around the community. So just appreciate you all, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Now we go to Domingo Dominguez.
Thank you, Salem Chamber of Commerce, the League of Women Voters, and the Fred Institute. I also want to thank you for the trust on me as one of your city councilors at large for the last 6 years. I want to let you know that I will continue to work with strong devotion and solid purpose to do my best to find common ground to the issue that matter the most to you. Salem has welcomed me and my family and given me so many opportunities, and this is my time to give back to Salem again. My time as a bilingual teacher, business owner, and as a parent, giving me the experience, and as a counselor to listening to you guys and make sure that I work with the solution of the issues that we had in front. I will continue to work and speak on the current local issues concerning to us. On November 7th, please give me your consideration as one of you for vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle Davis.
Thank you so much. I felt compelled to run for city councilor at large because I believe that we need different types of people, perspectives, and lived experiences at every level of government, including local. As a renter on Canal Street, I would be the only renter on the council if elected. I grew up as a gay man in an amazing blended and ethnically diverse family with 2 moms. As a waiter, I've been the victim of wage theft, and I understand personally the struggle for workers' rights. I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. I've always channeled the challenges that I've faced outwards onto helping people through my activism, advocacy, and volunteer work. And I'd be honored to continue that within the City Council and bring my lived experience to the important conversations we have within that body and fight like hell to create a more equal and thriving Salem for everyone, including our most marginalized communities. Thank you.
Thank you. I go all the way down to the other end. Felipe? Number 5, excuse me, Alice.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Alice Merkel, and I have the honor of being your counselor at large. I want to thank the Chamber and our sponsors and the Hawthorne Hotel for having us, and all of you for attending tonight. We have many challenges that we're facing, and I'm sure we'll be discussing them tonight. And I am running for re-election because I want to continue the work we are doing on the council to meet those challenges. I'm passionate about serving my community with my many years of volunteer work with the Salem Pantry, the Mack Park Food Farm, the Women's Friends Society, the Council on Aging, Salem Education Foundation. And being on the council has really complemented and enhanced that work and even provided a better opportunity for me to serve our communities. I've also been proactive in serving our residents in creating a bi-weekly newsletter that I've been sending out for the last few years and with Salem Services. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay. Felipe?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Felipe Zamberlini, and I'm here to ask you for your vote come November 7th. My wife and I moved to Salem in 2018 as we were looking for an affordable community. Now, I want you to think of a city where everybody can afford their home, everybody can find the resources they need to be able to thrive, and everybody can find it to be an accessible community. I believe Salem can be that city, and that is why I'm running. Since 2018, when we moved here, I immediately got involved in the city and joined the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board and have been serving through that body since then. Today, I'm the chair of the board. I'm very passionate about housing. That is certainly an issue we'll be discussing today and certainly something that I'll bring to the table. Because not only do I bring my own lived experience as somebody that has dealt with poverty, dealt with hunger, dealt with housing instability, but I'm also going to bring to the table over 10 years experience on policy, community organizing at the federal, state, and local levels. When it comes to potholes and when it comes to policies, I am ready to do that work, and I hope I can count on your vote.
Thank you. Conrad Pajewski.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. For you folks that don't know me, my name is Conrad Prasnewski. I'm 69 years old, and I was born and raised and educated in Salem. I served my community for nearly 41 years as a police officer, retiring 4 years ago as the assistant chief. And at that time, I was humbly elected as your counselor at large. After more than 45 years of public service, I would like to think that I know the city. I know its neighborhoods, many of its people, its beautifully diverse culture, and its rich and unique history. I'm a first-generation American whose parents immigrated here after World War II, and I was raised in a bilingual household. Salem is a progressive city and has an incredibly bright future, but we must all work together to keep it unique, diverse, inclusive, sustainable, and affordable. That's why I'm running again for city council, to help make my city, your city, our city, a safer and wonderful place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to get right to it, and we start with Alice. There's been a lot of talk recently about the unhoused population and the encampment at the South River, as well as about the proposed redevelopment of the LifeBridge campus. Where do you stand in regards to this?
Yes, there certainly has. I regularly speak with and work to assist people that are unhoused, and it is heartbreaking. I've closely observed the work being done by the Salem Police Community Impact Unit with LifeBridge, and I support and respect their approach of building relationships and having an understanding that there's different lived experiences and challenges that each person faces, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. I do support upgrades and enhancement of LifeBridge, and I support doing everything we can to create, whether it's units for people transitioning out of housing or affordable housing, everything we can do to increase the options. If we want LifeBridge and the Community Impact Unit to have options to offer, we need to create those options.
Thank you. Conrad.
Thank you. Well, that's a tough question, and I think if I could answer that, I'd probably be senator or something even better than that. The homeless situation in Salem is nothing that's different from the rest of the country, and it's something that just can't be answered with the snap of a finger. I can tell you that we in Salem have been working extremely hard to try to help those underprivileged individuals to find shelter, relief, jobs, health benefits. The Community Impact Unit from the Salem Police Department, which I was part of at the very beginning, is out working hand in hand with those folks, trying to help them along as much as they can, but a lot of their issues are not, they have mental issues that should be addressed besides the physical part of being homeless. Jason Etheridge over at LifeBridge has done a very good job of working hand in hand with us also to try to help this situation. It's being worked on. It's being talked every day. Every day we try to do what we can to try to come up with some kind of solution so that we don't have the problems that some of the rest of the country has. Thank you.
Thank you. Philippe.
I'm in full support of the LifeBridge work that's being planned right now, completely. I am a former policy director at Rosie's Place, so I get homelessness from the perspective of working directly with persons that are experiencing homelessness. It's not long ago that I was that policy director. And at the end of the day, every conversation that I had ended with, I need a home. I need a home, and I need a home. It's not starting with asking what services you need. It's starting with a housing first strategy. And that housing first strategy has to be comprehensive to make sure that we're not only creating more shelter spaces, but we are moving to transitional housing. And from that transitional housing point, we then can provide them the supports they need to be able to thrive beyond now that they are housed, including finding opportunities for employment where we do need to connect them at that point. But it starts with the housing first strategy. It starts by us having an honest conversation about housing and the fact that we are not doing enough as a city to do more housing for those who are most in need in our city. As councilor, that's what I would prioritize, making sure that those most in need have what they need.
Okay. Kyle.
I'm very much in support of LifeBridge and all of our partners that are creating housing because of the urgent need for housing. It's no surprise that an unaffordable city also has a large unhoused population. Those things go hand in hand. We need long-term solutions. I've been very privileged to work with organizations like Wood City Action that have been able to provide short-term solutions. A couple nights in a hotel room, dispersing, these basic needs that people have. We need long-term solutions, and we need a wide array of them. When the Community Impact Unit is communicating with unhoused people, we can't throw our hands up and say these people don't want help the first time they reject a singular solution. People have many reasons why a particular solution doesn't work for them. If they have to be separated from a pet, they have to go to community very far away from any support system they have. And finally, we need affordable housing. We need a tiered inclusionary zoning ordinance. We need to re-examine a lot of our zoning for long-term solutions.
Domingo.
Thank you. I think this is a great question, and I have to be very, very clear on this. My answer to this is I'm in support of any type of program that can help the situation, which is very complex. But I think that we also have to keep in mind that in the neighborhood where we wanted to have that solution, also need to have some type of attention. We have a neighborhood nearby that need to be taken into consideration. I know the library is working with the neighborhood, and I like to see more conversation going on in order for me to formulate my decision. I'm always looking for the betterment of the quality of life of the people that live here, the local people. We understand that this situation needs to be addressed not only at the local level, but also at the state level. It's a mental health component that needs to be addressed too, and there's some other complex that need to be taken care. I'd like to see a better project. I'm not in support of the project that I've seen so far because it's going to aggravate some of the quality of life surrounding the neighborhood. Thank you.
Just finished a book recently called Rough Sleepers, and if you get a chance, you should check it out. It's about a doctor in Boston, and really shows the impact that one individual can make in the lives of folks who are sleeping out or are spending their time outside or unhoused. It really shows how complicated these situations are and how everything you think you know about the homeless community or the unhoused community, it's always a much more complicated issue. And it's a result really of the housing crisis that we're all in. We're experiencing the housing crisis at every level in this community, and that goes to the very bottom where folks are having struggles finding a place to keep a roof over their heads, are winding up in this situation. And what we see is visible on the South River. What we don't see is we see folks sleeping on people's couches, et cetera. It's an unseen problem here that we have in Salem. I've brought forward a resolution or a discussion to talk about single room occupancy as something we could potentially allow in the city. The Life Bridge project, whatever happens there, is going to be a major impact and is going to be a major part of that neighborhood for years to come. I don't think that project is there yet. I think there's still some more work to do there, but I think Life Bridge is a great organization.
Okay, thank you. Question 2, and we're going to start with Conrad. Here's a chance to expound on this. As low and middle income households are increasingly squeezed out of Salem's housing market, the need for more workforce housing and affordable housing is obvious. And our retirees have trouble finding an affordable condo to downgrade so their current home can become available for first-time buyers. At the same time, there seems to be a not in my backyard attitude toward development. Can you explain to the audience where you stand on these issues?
So, Salem is the victim of its own success. It's become a very desirable place to live. People want to live in Salem. It's got history, it's got culture, it's got the diversity, it's got a lot going for it, and because of that, our housing crisis has developed to the point that it's making it very unaffordable for the average person to be able to live in Salem. We have here in Salem, for any new development, we have a 10% standard for any developer to build an apartment unit has to put in 10% of those units at an affordable rate, which again, affordable could be arguable what that is. I'd like to see that raised probably to 15 or 20%, especially with the large developments that are coming to Salem, such as Shetland Park, Bertini's property, South Campus. That could make a positive impact on a little bit of a positive impact. But again, it's better to be a desirable city to be in than some city that people want to move away from. So again, it's a balance of trying to find out how we can make it affordable and attainable. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we really got to start by being honest with ourselves. We have not built enough housing for the last 50 years, not only in Salem, but across the whole state of Massachusetts and across the whole country. So it's a national crisis, it's a statewide crisis, it's a local crisis. And then we got to continue to be honest with ourselves. If we want affordability in today's American economic system, the only thing that gets you that is density. It's more than 3 stories. That's the only thing that gets you that. If we want to really have affordability and have a real discussion about that, we have to go to our zoning laws. We have to look into things like Cambridge is doing and having an overlay district that across the whole city that allows projects that are 100% to be by right. Housing that has to be affordable has to have density. or we really need to make sure that we are improving our zoning rules to make sure that we are incentivizing, legitimately incentivizing, not just saying that we're going to be incentivizing and not change our zoning rules to do that. We have got to do that in tandem with each other, because otherwise we're not really going to get there.
Kyle.
As I said, I would be one of those middle-class, working-class individuals that is very much being squeezed. And I'm excited to be that representation for the 50% of residents that currently have none. If you work in Salem, you should be able to afford to live in Salem. We need affordable options at every income level. That's why I support a tiered inclusionary zoning ordinance. I support the condo conversion ordinance, and I think that we need a reasonable rent stabilization policy to prevent eviction by price gouging. Right now, there's nothing in place to stop a landlord from raising rents 200%. I think that we should join the list of cities that has enacted right to counsel for tenants to end the asymmetry of representation in the courtroom. The bottom line is that I am ready to be a voice for renters, cost-burdened people, and working-class people and families, because housing is a human right.
Thank you. Domingo.
Thank you. Housing having a human face, and I think we all know that I'm coming from a community that are the most vulnerable one at this moment, based on the fact of the economic conditions. However, I think so far we have built so many housing in the last couple of years, but I think that we need to balance what we build here in Salem. I think that we need to build more affordable, real affordable housing that really feel the need of the local people that live here in Salem. And I want to propose that it be a conversation with the private sector, the government, and the businesses to try to create housing in a way that we used to do it before. I don't know how long ago, but the Pico Highland is a good example. Loring Tower and Salem High. Those type of housing are very successful, and we need to do more than that to address the solution on this human face issue. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that the NIMBY versus YIMBY argument that we have a lot of times is it exists online. It exists for sure in public comment a lot of times. I've knocked on over 20,000 doors in the last 3 elections. When I hear at the doors, I don't hear those extreme opinions. I hear people who want to see development that contributes to their neighborhood. And that includes a lot of the policies that we're working on right now. Things like the condo conversion ordinance to slow down the conversion of rental units to condos. Things like accessory dwelling units, which we have passed recently. Inclusionary zoning to ensure that developers are contributing a greater share of their units to affordable housing. And housing stability services, ensuring that renters know what their rights are and have people who can advise them on their rights. These are things that we've worked hard on the council to get passed and to work through, and they're things that enjoy popular support in the neighborhood. And I think that this argument that we frequently have about folks being against everything is not something that I hear at the doors. I hear people have a much more reasonable approach to understanding what development is.
Thank you. Alice.
Thank you. Yes, this is definitely a big topic of discussion, and a lot of great initiatives that we're working on have already been mentioned to implement the housing production plan, also focusing on protecting renters with the condo conversion ordinance. But also, I think it's important to remember when we think about of the need for affordable housing is 2 things. One is a sense of urgency. People are waiting years on waiting lists to get a home. The North Shore CDC recently completed one of their locations with 46 units. They got over 3,000 applications. So we need a real sense of urgency in our need to create affordable housing. Also, I do hear concerns with people if development is going to be right in their neighborhood. I live right near the train station. And less than a block away from me is a large number of affordable housing. And I lived in my home for years before I even knew it was affordable housing. And then across the street, a mixed...
We're at time?
Oh, sorry. Boy, that minute goes by fast. But anyway, please reach out with any further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this question we start with Philippe. This is a question from the audience. This year, the cost of hosting haunted happenings will come close to or perhaps exceed all the revenue that the city of Salem will receive from the hotel motel tax, vendor rentals, and the public parking fees. As a city councilor, what are you prepared to do to ensure that the city generates more revenue in future years to cover the public costs of haunted happenings? Or are you willing to let Salem taxpayers foot the bill?
We are a desirable city and we are a desirable tourist destination. Those are both good things to have. What's not good is to let it run wild without any sort of plan and any sort of controls over the time to make sure that we have consistent investments. I know this is a topic that's been brought up before in Salem and shot down very quickly, and I'm going to bring it up again. We need to have a proper tax system to consider tourist tax. That's more making sure that we're bringing additional revenue. And I know that the folks that are going to come to Salem are still going to come to Salem, because even if we did a small percentile tax, that's a tourist tax, you could bring $1 million. That might not be a lot, but that's $1 million that we could sell to a tourist. Hey, that extra 5 cents that you're paying on every purchase you're making is improving the sidewalk you're walking, as well as for every other resident in the city in the other 11 months of the year. So I do believe we need to have an honest conversation about financing around taxation to make sure that the revenue that comes to the city is contributed, and not just by us.
I think that we really need to amplify the messaging of, if you're going to come to Salem, great, but don't drive. I think that, if people know that they're going to have a very hard time parking in Salem and that we're going to be towing their cars if they park illegally, like a lot of people are finding out this month, they'll hopefully make better alternatives. And I think on our end, we need to provide those better alternatives. I think things like the Salem Skipper have been fantastic, and I think we'll see us, continue to manage things better as that expands to other communities. I think getting a South MBTA station would really help. I'd be in favor of shuttle buses, taking people to all the most popular tourist destinations, because I think that's really most of the pain that we feel is traffic and parking, and I think that would take a lot of the responsibility off of police workers that are out there, directing large amount of cars, and that's a very high expense for us.
Can you please repeat the question, please?
Sure. This year, the cost of hosting haunted happenings will come close to or perhaps exceed all the revenue that the city of Salem will receive from the hotel motel tax, vendor rentals, and the public parking fees. As a city councilor, what are you prepared to do to ensure that the city generates more revenue in future years to cover the public costs of haunted happenings? Or are you willing to let Salem taxpayers foot the bill?
Great question. As a business owner, I think that we have to plan better in that regard. We have many opportunities to increase the revenue. You see that every year the visitors continue to grow. Because of the good marketing that we have done for so many years. And we have to commend this administration, past administration, that did a tremendous job. But I think that we need to work better in the financial aspect of the hunting happening and the whole Halloween season, which is one of the seasons where we put a lot of effort, because our local people suffer the most based on the fact that traffic, parking, and the congestions has been there. So we need to make sure that we get better revenue. I agree that we need to have a type of taxes or any other type of revenue so we can cut the most revenue possible, so we can not only cover that, continue to succeed and grow economically wise. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that it's very difficult to measure the impact of haunted happenings. I think that that's certainly, it's true that those fees are sometimes getting very close right now. It's a topic we covered in a committee meeting recently. But the impact of haunted happenings is felt beyond that, and that it's keeping businesses open year round. It supports our tax base. We have to be honest with ourselves and understand that without haunted happenings as a city, we would be in a very difficult financial position right now. That having been said, there are, I live downtown. There are impacts absolutely to the residents here. And I think that I know that this mayor's committed to, and I'm certainly committed to looking at haunted happenings and trying to be thoughtful about what this looks like moving forward. Things like impact fees, I think, are important. I think that we have rules on the books to deal with some of the things that happen in haunted happenings, but we don't have a lot of enforcement out there. There's, and sometimes there's one officer out sort of making sure that all the tour guides are licensed and everybody's doing what they should be doing. There's opportunity to add additional enforcement. That could happen through impact fees.
Alice.
Thank you. Yes, the impact grows every year, and the expenses of haunted happenings does grow. The bathrooms get more expensive, security, police details, cleanup, and living right downtown, I've seen an increase during the week too. But as was just stated, it is hard to measure the benefits to our residents just looking at October, because it keeps us with a thriving downtown throughout the year. But that being said, we do want to keep taking a deep dive into those numbers as all those other expenses continue to rise. We could look at, what the city can make regarding vendors, and yes, keep taking a close look at this. Thank you.
Conrad.
Thank you. 60 seconds to talk about Halloween from someone that's spent over 40 years out there is just way too short of a time, but let's get to the question. We're in the process of reorganizing in the city how Halloween is run. There's been serious talk about having a different management system with a chain of command, a leadership type of role, so that it's not as haphazard as it is right now. We're not Disney World. We can't close the gates and have people come in and pay an admission and then raise it as time goes by. That's not what we can do. We have to count on the taxes, the money that's earned through meals taxes, through all the different businesses. And again, the quality of the experiences that people have over here should be addressed. I think there's a little bit too much schlock in the city, and we should be given a richer experience to people who would spend more money. But I'm hoping that the redistribution of the monies earned goes to this new regime that's going to be hopefully taken over, and I'll be glad to be part of helping organize that. Thank you.
Great. Okay, let me start with Kyle for this next question. And you have 60 seconds to answer this question. What ideas do you have to improve Salem's parking and traffic situation? In 60 seconds.
Got into that a little bit, but I think about the climate crisis a lot when we think about this. I think that we owe it to ourselves to create a less car-dependent city. That's a huge passion of mine, and I think that really comes with providing amazing alternatives. We got into that a little bit, but bike infrastructure is something I didn't touch on. The hope really is that for every cyclist that feels safe to go on their commute to work on a bike instead of a car, that's one less car on the road, one less person fighting for parking spaces. I know that I would gladly take my bike to work when it's warmer weather to Peabody if I felt safe in doing that. And I would love to take the Salem Skipper for $2. I'd gladly give up my car, gladly not be another car on the road and fighting for parking spaces if I had that opportunity. So these are the things I think we really need to be doing, and that's really going to ease the burden, not just for people that want to be cyclists and pedestrians, but for people that drive cars. So I think we should all be welcoming that move.
Domingo.
Traffic and parking are one of the top items in the question when I go door knocking, especially now in Halloween. I used to live in New York, a very congested city, and they are very creative in so many instances. I haven't heard anyone in the traffic commission bringing some of the experts from big cities to try to help us. But most importantly, I think that we need to hear more from the people, the public. Sometimes we don't know how many ideas can come from the city, from the citizens who are on a daily basis affected by the traffic and parking. So open up to the public and listen more and make sure that we follow and get a master plan, not only what we think is an expert, but also from other cities and towns who have done it, who have a difficult situation with traffic and parking. So I would like to see more conversation in that in regard to getting experts from different cities, if we can. Thank you.
We absolutely need to make sure that everyone feels safe no matter how they choose to get around. So whether you're going by car or by bike or by scooter or on foot, you need to feel safe. And I think we've got some places where that's good. We've got some places where that's not so good. And a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And we've got a few weak links here that we're dealing with. Regarding parking, if we created the amount of parking spaces downtown that we need to deal with all the visitors and residents who are coming here, you wouldn't like the downtown that we have here. We've already demolished 40%. Back in the 1960s, we demolished 40% of downtown Salem to create surface level parking, which is still out there right now. It's an issue that no community has solved, no community may solve around parking and traffic in a desirable place. But I think that we just need to ensure that folks, but as a council, we work to ensure that we can help as many residents as possible wherever we can. But it's a whack-a-mole situation frequently. And I think we lead with empathy and we work with the residents the best that we possibly can on those situations, but there are no easy answers there.
Thank you. Yes, I live right downtown. I observe the traffic and parking as I go around the city on my scooter on a regular basis. And between my scooter and the skipper, we do have good alternatives to getting around the city. And I encourage us to continue creating low-cost transportation options like the skipper and blue bikes. And not only to ease the congestion, but there's also an equity component to this. Not everyone can afford a car between the price of rents and groceries and student loans. So having safe, low-cost options to get around is a responsibility that I take seriously. The bike lanes, continue to implement our traffic calming initiatives so people feel safe. I'm excited about the idea of a South Salem commuter rail stop. I think that will be helpful. And in October, I think our efforts to encourage more MBTA trains, satellite parking and shuttles to be used, I think that's been helpful as well.
Thank you. Conrad.
Thank you. Our streets weren't designed for motor vehicles. Our streets were designed for cart paths, horses, cows, footpaths, whatever it was, back in 1626. And what happened was our roads followed those paths. And frankly, they're very difficult to navigate now with all the vehicles that we've had. One of the things that's wrong with the traffic, especially the traffic part of it, is that a lot of good ideas fall upon deaf ears. There's a lot of red tape involved in trying to get projects off the ground that make sense. I think, that old saying that too many cooks in the kitchen spoil it. This seems to be an issue over here. I know that we've tried to make changes over the years, and it just takes a long time to be able to do it. I'd like to be able to cut through some of that red tape and try to get more of the professionals involved and try to get the people that know the traffic and know the parking to be able to make the decisions instead of having to go through boards and consultants. Thank you.
I have a laundry list because this is definitely a really problematic issue. I'd say first and foremost, we need to make sure that we're having complete streets where pedestrians, cyclists, and cars can coexist with security for each other so that we're not hitting each other in ways that sometimes happen in the city of Salem. I'd say number two, we definitely have to improve our sidewalks. We need to make sure that there are more bike lanes and that those bike lanes are connected. We need to make sure that we are increasing the skipper to make sure that it's more efficient throughout the city. And there are states that are doing skipper at the state level, working with municipalities to have coordination. I think we need to have that coordination with the state as well. We need to make sure that we are being data-driven about our traffic calming measures, not on demand only. We need to make sure that we are working on no turn on reds to reduce the likelihood of incidents on red lights. We need to make sure that we are, at the end of the day, also re-envisioning our entire traffic pattern. We need to make an update to our traffic master plans. We need to have one that is enforceable and will actually look to the future of our city.
Thank you. Okay, we start with Domingo. Career and technical education is a major part of the current high school's curriculum, and it will be front and center in the design of the new high school or the new middle school or middle high school. Would you support an override to get the new school funded?
I would do. And I want to mention to you that as a former teacher, parent of 7 children, I think that we need to look out for the new way of educate our children. I believe that this is the next level on alternative that our children can have. If they decided not to have a university because of any reason, they can go for a trade and they can have a trade profession so they can work. For example, I have one of my child who opened and owned a barbershop. He's been successful, and I think that all our kids should have a second choice in case they don't want to go ahead and pursue an education in any university. So I will support, and I commend the high school who actually have this program And I also wanted to mention that with the new program, the new project on environment that we're going to have here, we actually open a career path to help teach our children and make sure that they can get educated into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that the CTE program at Salem High School is incredible. I think that I would absolutely support continued investment in that. Also, just want to appreciate Dr. Zweig for his continued leadership in Salem Public Schools. We've made big strides there. We've seen a lot of struggles since COVID for sure, but I think there's been big strides that have been made there. I'm excited to see a new high school built. I think there's absolutely still planning and work to do around that right now. Specifically, going back to the previous question, Salem High School is not accessible by bike or by any way besides taking your vehicle there. So I think ensuring that we're working with the state to ensure that that's a safe way for people to get to school that doesn't involve taking a car, I think is also very important.
Alice.
Yes, thank you. I think the plans and the vision for the new high school are really exciting, and I totally support it. I've seen the list of the committee members that were assembled to look at this path forward, and I think it's terrific. I've attended events by the CTE program at the high school and their graduation, and I've never seen such enthusiasm from students for their professors. I think it's terrific because not everyone can go to the Essex Tech, and that the CTE program is enormously popular. And I can't imagine when I was young and not a conventional learner how beneficial the CTE program would have been for me. It has my full support.
I can't believe that they're already building a new high school when the one that I went to isn't the one that's open right now. I believe the high school that we have now was built in 1976, and it was built by a contractor that took a lot of shortcuts, and that school is basically falling apart. And we do need a new high school, hands down for that. I think the first thing we have to do is hire a responsible contractor that's going to build something that's going to last a lot more than 40 years or so, because this is just unacceptable what's happened with this building. The other thing is, I think that the new superintendent, Stephen Streich, has done a good job of making curriculum changes to adapt to the needs of this community, particularly this community. The CTE program is a big success for those that you don't know. It's an expansion of the vocational type of work that people will be doing. And I know that with the new Windshore Power, Crowley promised to put in a marine engineering and some more marine education into the schools to be able to educate our kids for our own community's needs as far as the SECO. So I'm optimistic.
Thank you.
What's happening? Thank you.
Could you repeat the question, please, for a moment?
Sure. Career and technical education is a major part of the current high school's curriculum, and it will be front and center in the design of the new high school or new middle high school. Would you support an override to get the new school funded?
Just recently was taking a look at the plans that were being drafted, and there are really a lot of great options, including making sure that we are better utilizing the buildings that currently exist so that we can figure out a better way to coordinate things, including potentially having more grades in the same building so that we can better utilize our buildings. If that ends up being the road that the city decides to go with, I'd be really supportive of making sure that we have additional supports for kids of all ages in the same location, whether that be in the high school or the middle school. I think either option is a potentially good option, but I will actually really agree with Councilor Pernansky on this. I went to a high school that was falling apart, and making sure that students have A, heat, and B, cooling system in a time where we're going into school a little longer, into a warmer times, and can focus into school and make sure that it's not peeling paints everywhere and that things aren't falling apart is essential to education. Having gone to a school that had those problems, I think it really is needed for us to do that work to make sure that that's not happening here.
Thank you.
I'm going to echo what a lot of what has been said, but incredibly supportive of the CTE program. I grew up in a community I was privileged to have those types of options, and I think that's so important. We know everyone knows people that have gone kind of a more traditional route and ended up with much student debt, and kind of wish that there were those options for them. I think anytime we have a situation where we have schools that are crumbling, that we have library infrastructure that is really not being taken care of, as we do in Salem, our priorities are in the wrong places, and these are some of the most valuable things that a community has, and we need to make sure that we're funding them to the best of our ability. So absolutely in support.
Thank you. Okay, for Ty, we have another question from the audience. What are your feelings on preserving Pioneer Village, preferably where it now resides?
So I think with Pioneer Village, I think I guess the way I look at that is we need to balance the needs of the community. So there's the first and most important, I think, need of our community is an affordable summer camp near the pool. So if that's in that location, then it's in that location. The other sort of, I guess, most important priority here is telling a full story of Salem's history, and that includes the Namkek people in Salem, which is not told in that location. So if that solution involves Pioneer Village remaining in place there as whatever ends up being in the future, and there's a summer camp next to it, and we rebuild something here, or we move it to the location that we're discussing right now, I think either of those options work. But the most important thing to me is that we have an affordable summer camp at that location, and we tell a full story of Salem's history. If that involves moving it, then that's a possibility. But if it doesn't involve moving it, I think there are other options around that possibly.
Yes, thank you. I do support the proposal to change the locations. My understanding is the proposal, has the support of the Essex National Heritage and other relevant organizations. And I understand the threat of the ocean rise to the current location of Pioneer Village, and also the opportunity to create a more inclusive history, as was just stated. I think it expands the potential for Pioneer Village, and also, to have the camp with the facilities, with the pool. I think that works out well. Yes, it has my support.
Conrad.
Thank you. I grew up between Forest River and Palmer's Cove Park. I know Pioneer Village pretty well. I used to sneak in there as a kid a lot when I was younger. Pioneer Village was built in 1930, and people can argue whether or not that's historic or not. It was a reproduction of something that Salem was supposed to look like back in the days, and it's been neglected, and it would cost a lot of money to refurbish it. And I get that part of it. But what bothers me is that the city is looking to spend $1 million to move something that has no historical value to another place that has no historical value, when they could be spending that money on things that we do have historical value to, and we're ignoring them, such as Fort Lee and Fort Pickering. So no, I am not for the move, because it's a waste of money, and that we're not spending wisely. Thank you.
I think the biggest challenge to that place right now is the environment. It's right on the water. Let's just be real. The climate change is not going away. We're right in the heart of it. We are being dealt a hand that we probably can't really play with. And moving to a location that is more climate resilient is a smarter direction to go with. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with the funding critique that was just proposed. I do think the city could do something different, which is seek out state funds, which unfortunately the city does an abysmal job at doing right now. There are grants in the state level that the city does not apply to, from planning to housing to environmental issues to tourism. We're failing. We're leaving those dollars at the table. I am a grants expert, and I bring that to the table to make sure that not only are we taking care of a site like that is so important, but we're also seeking out those dollars to get that job done without saddling taxpayers with all of that all the time.
Thank you. Let's please hold the applause to the end.
I'd say I certainly support the move as well. I think that, the rise of sea levels isn't something that just, is a risk for communities and for people. It's a risk for our historical monuments and things that we look at to learn about our history and reflect upon it. So I think that when this was built 100 years ago, it wasn't necessarily made to last. It wasn't made with the threat of the climate crisis in mind. So I think that if preserving our history means putting it in a place that is safe and climate resilient, that is something that I absolutely support.
Domingo.
Thank you. I now support the move on the village. I think 30 years ago when I moved to Salem, one of the things that attracted me was the history. And if we are not careful enough, we're going to destroy what attracts people to Salem. We also need to make sure that we listen to the people who live here, who built this city. We have so many history behind those sites that we need to keep into consideration. I agree that we need to make sure that we invest, to make sure that we can not only have the place attractive, but also feasible for people to come by. I think that we haven't really explored who we are here in Salem. The history of Salem is very rich, and I value history, so I'm not in favor of moving Pioneer Terrace. Village, I'm sorry.
Okay. We start this one with, excuse me, another housing question. And we've had a couple of them on this topic from the crowd, so I'm going to try and put them all into one. And we go with Alice. To help increase housing units, New York City just instituted limits on Airbnb-style short-term rentals. Should Salem institute a similar policy, or should they repeal their 2019 vote allowing Airbnbs in the first place?
Yes, just so I understand your question, it was to propose eliminating them or reducing them?
Either.
Either, okay, thank you. Yes, I thought Salem was as I recall, Salem was one of the first communities to address the short-term rentals using up our rental stock by putting an ordinance in place. And I think with the increase in short-term rentals, I know a lot of people that it really does assist them staying in their homes. So I wouldn't support getting rid of them. But I think this needs to be revisited regularly to examine the impact that it is having on our housing stock, to have better enforcement of people not following the rules in having them. And yes, I'm open to continuing looking at the impact that it has.
Thank you. Conrad.
Thank you. When I got on the council, this was a hot potato. Airbnbs were popping up all over all the different neighborhoods in the cities, and people's lives, the quality of their lives were being challenged by the way that the housing stock was going. People were buying single-family homes with all the intention of just renting them out as B&Bs, and that was changing the character of a lot of the neighborhoods. The council did a good job of quickly putting together some rules and ordinances to curtail it, and which seem to be working right now. I'm not going to say that everything works 100%, because you still hear some complaints. Can we fine-tune it a little better? Yes, we can. But we've addressed it. We've nipped it in the bud. And with the representation from our ward councilors as to what's happening in their wards with their people, we can continue to fine-tune this and make it better for the quality of life for their neighbors. Thank you.
I went to the same high school as the founder of Airbnb. I've been following Airbnb since it came as an idea, hearing from classmates of mine who graduated 2 years after, saying there's this guy who's trying to create this new model of hoteling at local levels so that people who are struggling to pay their rents can use the spare rooms. It is not meant for using in full units, especially in a time where we have a housing crisis. It is unethical. It is contrary to the idea that we want more affordability in the city, to have a full unit being used as an Airbnb. I am not in support of full units being used for Airbnb. I am in support, however, of you using your extra space. We understand that for a lot of people who are seniors, it is very hard or impossible to be able to find a downsized condo. Well, they could potentially rent out a small room in their home or one or two in their home and be able to have an Airbnb. But for us to be able to have full units that could have a family living in it, instead be about 50% of the year housing for temporary folks, that's not okay. I would be much willing to revisit that.
Thank you.
As I understand it, the city actually has a very strong ordinance and regulations when it comes to short-term rentals. And I really congratulate the city for accomplishing that. There's always room for improvement. I would certainly support re-examining it, making it stronger. But the main concern that I have is really with enforcement. When I walk around and I'm talking to people door to door, this issue pops up constantly, not just with Airbnbs and short-term rentals, but with the new ADU ordinance, which is something that, again, I absolutely support. But if people aren't following the very strong guidelines that are in place to make sure that this isn't being taken advantage of, that these things are supposed to be in place to make sure that we're protecting affordability at a time of a housing crisis, that's majorly important. Losing all of what could be really affordable units to these kinds of things would be really problematic.
I remember myself being in those conversations, and it was a very hard topic that at that moment many people was in favor, or was against. My comments into those conversations was that we need to maintain the balance. We are a visiting city, but we also have people who live here. New York can afford to shut it down because New York have other way of getting revenue. In order for us to shut it down here completely, we need to make sure that we have other type of revenue. We need to diversify. We need to make sure that we not only concentrate on the visitor sector, we need to make sure that we implement some other type of income revenue in order for us to shut it down. I think that I agree with some of my colleagues who say that we need to maintain and we need to make sure that we actually fix whatever is wrong and try to reinforce, which is the big aspect of, so the quality of life of the people surrounding cannot be affected. Thank you.
Thank you. And for full disclosure, my wife and I operate an Airbnb out of the third floor of our home. It's a unit that we use for family when they visit, and we also rent out to help us pay our taxes and to stay in our home there. So I actually really appreciate the opportunity to talk on this right now because I always recuse myself in the council when we talk about this. Just to be clear, Airbnbs are something that if done within the spirit of our ordinance that we have here, which is really one family, one unit, it's helping actual Salem residents stay in their homes. It's helping Salem residents pay for the upkeep on their historic homes. It's helping Salem residents pay their taxes. This is all money that should be staying here in Salem to help Salem people, and it's part of the solution to our housing crisis. That having been said, the ones that are operating illegally are taking units off the market right now, and it's happening all across the city. There are units there are buildings that maybe were 11 single room occupancies that are becoming a full-on hotel that's operating illegally, and I would encourage residents to call those in and report those. Also, we need to publish the list of residents who have registered their short-term rentals so residents can know that.
Okay. Will we start with Conrad for this one? Salem, like all coastal communities, must consider climate change and rising sea levels. What do you think the city should do to work on, what do you think the city should work on to address the climate crisis?
There's no doubt about it that because we're a seaside community, we have to take a hard look at exactly what climate change is and how it's going to affect our city. I know a lot of our council talk has been about the climate change, and we have some folks on our city council who are more in tune to the environmental issues than others. But I think probably the most important thing that we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the near future. We have to turn to the experts and listen to them and listen to their advice, the professionals, the doctors, the scientists, the people who know exactly what to do to shore up our areas, what Salem needs to do to protect itself from climate change, because we're different than other communities. I know our seawalls have to be shored up. I mean, there are things that at a glance are easily, you can say are problems. But right now, I defer to the experts. I want to listen to the experts and listen to what they advise. Thank you.
I think first and foremost, we need to implement the plans that we have on the books right now. We have actually a pretty good plan right now for climate resilience, and it's got about 41 goals. A lot of them have not been fully implemented. Some have been fully implemented, including taking a look at some of our seawalls and finding ways to improve them. but really this is in some ways an infrastructure question right now as well. We need to make sure that our climate resilient infrastructure is up to par with what we're about to face. And we're not quite there right now. I go back to my earlier comment about grants that are left behind for us to actually do that work. We should certainly look more into those. At the same time, we do need to improve our own livability. We are a great community, but we can be greater. We can have more trees lining more of our streets. We can improve our parks to have better permeability for rain or ordered stormwater. We can make sure that that also is implemented in our sidewalks to have better permeability for rain and other waters that we may be facing in the near future. And at the end of the day, we do need to reduce emissions. So that includes working very closely with our regional cities and towns to make sure that we are improving public transit access.
The climate crisis is the crisis of our lifetime, and as an environmental justice community, Salem is at the heart of that crisis. So we have a responsibility not only to move boldly in our transition to renewable energy and decarbonizing our infrastructure and buildings, but also to prepare in a comprehensive way for the weather events that will become more extreme and more frequent over time. We need to work with our dedicated partners like SAFE, CERC, and the Salem Sound Coastal Watch to protect every vulnerable community along the waterfront. We need to become less car dependent. We need to take full advantage of the Green Community Grant Funds. We need to say no to all new fossil fuel infrastructure. I'm committed to listening to the scientists and making sure that this is a community that my generation is safe to grow old in and that new generations are safe to grow up in.
The whole world is impacted by climate crisis, and Salem is in the coast. And eventually, we have a problem with the levels still continue to rise. I will support any initiative from the science. And I also wanted to suggest that we continue to work with Salem State University in educating us on how can we get alternative energy. I will support any action in solar energy and clean energy. I think that we need to move into that. We see the whole state and other cities and towns moving to that. I think that the city council is working on many actions, but we need to be more and more aggressive because this is a crisis that affects not only us, but the whole world. So I will support any action and I will be happy to be part of the conversation. Thank you.
To quote Councilor Cohen, we are absolutely in a climate emergency right now, and that is absolutely the truth. I think there's a few things we need to deal with this. Number one, we just need to do our part as a community. So that includes things that we've already done, like the municipal green building ordinance, the wetlands protection ordinance, the styrofoam ban, supporting offshore wind is something we need to continue to do, but we need to do our part there. Supporting affordable housing near transit is something that's very important for us to continue to do. Historic preservation is something that is a green initiative. The greenest building you can construct is one that's already been built, and ensuring that we're preserving buildings that we have here for things like affordable housing is important moving forward for the climate. The other part of this is the real world issues that we're dealing with around climate change, which is, as already mentioned, the storms that we're going to continue to see. So things like planting trees to absorb the rainwater. I think 2/3 of the rainwater is absorbed by street trees or can be. Supporting the salt marshes, permeable pavers, using reusable paving materials like bricks. Those are things that are good for the environment, are good for our trees, good for the runoff. High water emergency response vehicles are also important to invest in.
Thank you. Wow, I really appreciate the comments and approach from all the candidates up here. You've used up all my notes. I mean, it's impressive. I'd be honored to serve with any of you. I guess to add to that, having a sense of urgency, that recognizing this is a crisis. And, as was stated, working with the great advocates that we have, like SAFE, Salem Sound Coast Watch, to create forward-thinking initiatives. And also, as was said, a regional approach. We need to work with the state on a larger scale. We have crumbling seawalls, and we have neighborhoods that regularly have consistently flooded. The Resilient Together Beverly and Salem initiative focus on particularly vulnerable areas. I've been on meetings, about the Point's vulnerability being an urban heat island. So yes, we need to come at this from all sides.
Thank you. Okay, this is an audience question. What is your vision for the Shetland site, and would you support a zoning change to allow for a mixed-use redevelopment of the site?
Shetland Park is Salem's biggest and our biggest asset right now when it comes to really tackling all of these issues that we've discussed already, from housing to the environment, but it is also the biggest risk around displacement. I was part of the planning group that was working with the developers of Shetland Park to come up with the current iteration of their design strategy, more or less. And I want to remind you all of us the answer that I gave earlier. You cannot get affordability if you don't have density. I am more or less in support of the direction they are going, but there's a really big asterisk there. They have to continue to work with the community, with the Point Neighborhood Association, to make sure that they are not causing displacement. I was not very happy with an answer that the owner of Shetland Park gave to a question I asked around a community benefits agreement and making sure that there is a displacement plan or an anti-displacement plan. He had mentioned that that was not entirely his job, that was the city's job. I don't entirely disagree, but I hate that perspective too, because that's passing the buck along. And while the city and as a councilor, I would work to make sure that that happens, we need to have a partner in Shetland Park as well to make sure that that happens.
Thank you.
I am in support of any new housing that we can have in Shetland Park, and I'm willing to be a part of whatever zoning changes that needs to do to make that happen. But I do think it needs to be done in a sensitive and thoughtful way. The ratio of affordable units to market rate units will determine whether this will be an amazing project for our community or something that will be a potential driver of gentrification, particularly for the Point neighborhood. So I think we need to really be clear in our communication when it comes to the developers and be really clear about what the needs of our communities are. If we're going to have new stores, new businesses, including grocery stores in Shetland Park, there will be a need for nearby affordable housing for those workers, ideally in Shetland Park. We don't want to exacerbate the issue of Salem's workforce needing to commute from a more affordable community. It's wrong and it adds to our congestion problem. So these are the conversations we need to be having as we continue to figure out the details of what exactly this redevelopment will be.
I'm not in support of any housing complex that will displace any community. I think that we need to be very careful. Gentrify any community in order to make some money for any project, that doesn't mean that we have the solution. The Point neighborhood is being right in the middle nearby the Shetland Park, and the plan that they have showed us will displace that neighborhood, will eat that neighborhood. I think that we need to have a better plan, a better solution for housing, not at the expense of leaving people who are there. We have businesses that are there that's the only revenue they have for life. And if we have a big complex next to them, it's going to destroy completely that neighborhood. So I don't think that that's the great idea. We need to make sure that we are better, and I'm not in favor of any project that will displace people. Thank you.
I'm generally in favor of new housing. I think it's something I'm very comfortable with and I understand. The Shetland site is one that I have felt a lot of mixed feelings on and to potentially negative feelings on. We work so hard to preserve historic neighborhoods in Salem. When you look at the Point neighborhood, it's one of the rare downtown neighborhoods that we have that is naturally occurring affordable housing. We have North Shore CDC has done a great job at adding affordability in there, but there's naturally occurring affordable housing in that neighborhood. I think 75% of that neighborhood is not deed restricted affordable housing. We add 1,000 units of potentially luxury housing into that neighborhood. It transforms that neighborhood overnight. And it's unnatural, and I think that's something that I feel extreme discomfort around. If working with the Point Neighborhood Association, they're able to come to an agreement about something with a community benefits agreement, greater percentage of affordable housing, new space for new businesses. I think that there's potential there, but I think this is an incredibly concerning project, and I don't say that about many projects, but I think that Shetland is one that we need to keep our eye on.
Yes, I very much agree. This really has to have careful, thoughtful planning involved moving forward because it is naturally affordable housing, which is fragile. 80% of the people, there are 80% renters in the Point, and that really needs some serious planning and communication, as was said, with that community. I have seen the developers on the Point Neighborhood Association meetings, but that needs to happen. There needs to be a lot more of that communication. I am happy to see some of the planning there for safer sidewalks when I walk in there. There's a school there. There are also nonprofits in Shetland Park, like the pantries there. So I want to make sure the businesses there, like the nonprofits, aren't displaced with higher rents.
Thank you. Shetland, by far, is probably the most important future project that this city is going to be seeing. It's the largest developmental challenge for this city. The question is this new development, how is this new development going to improve Salem? How will the ripple effect impact the Point neighborhood, which will again affect the rest of the city? We have to take a very careful look at exactly what is going to go there and whether it is going to make this city rise or not. There have been, thank you.
Okay, we start with Kyle. For this. Salem strives to be a diverse, equitable, and inclusive city. What have you done to lead on these ideals, and how will you support work in this area?
Yeah, when I think about inequity, I think a lot about the Point neighborhood, which I think that Salem has not done nearly enough to engage with. This is a neighborhood where many people told me not to do any door knocking or phone banking because of the incredibly low voter turnout. I rejected that advice because I think it's incredibly important to engage with a community, particularly one that has had so much housing insecurity, food insecurity. And again, that low voter turnout is indicative of the work that is left to do on that. I also think about income inequality, something that has been very much a focus of my activism and advocacy, whether that was through my work in terms of being a worker and fighting for higher wages and standing with unions. It's obviously an issue that extends far beyond Salem, but when people can't afford basic needs, housing, healthcare, food, water, that's a failure of society and of government. The society is judged by how it treats its most vulnerable, and there's still left work to do to make sure people's basic needs are being met.
Thank you.
Salem has been a welcoming community, and diversity is one of the richest elements that compone Salem. Being able to not only communicate to different communities is part of the equation, but when we hear comments about a project that will displace any community, how can you feel that you can be part of this community when you are targeted the way it's been targeted, a very vulnerable community? I'm part of that community, and I have, on a daily basis, I speak with that community, and I see what they're facing on a daily basis. Communication, but the wrong communications get to them when they don't know exactly they're going to continue to live in a neighborhood where they invest, where they bring their family. I am a new immigrant, and I'm the face of the new immigrants here in Salem. And I'm very fortunate to succeed in this environment because Salem has welcomed me and my family, but not everybody feels the same. So we need to work better into that, make sure that we send the right message to the people that are the most vulnerable one. Thank you.
Part of what makes Salem a magical city, I think, for a lot of us, and a place that a lot of us want to call home, is it's a community where folks of different backgrounds, different ideas, at different economic levels, from different parts of the country and different parts of the world, can live side by side and live in close proximity to each other. And I think we're all richer for that. I think this is why Mike and I decided to stay here and to raise our kids in this community. We wanted to be in a city that valued that sort of thing. I see Salem being a city that's more and more difficult for people to live in. It's in danger of losing some of that magic, and we've had that for 400 years. If you look at Salem's history, it's been a diverse history for almost 400 years. So I think that ensuring that we support things like affordable housing. We've talked this to death tonight. This affordable housing is and the ability of someone to keep a roof over their head is the most important issue that we face as a community. ensuring we continue to support those things, but also ensuring that we're showing the world what we're about, and that goes through things like the rainbow crosswalks and other things that show the rest of the community what we're all about here in Salem.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Salem strives to be a diverse, equitable, and inclusive city. What have you done to lead on these ideals, and how will you support work in this area?
Yes, great question. I think just having the community involvement with the different activities and cultural events around the city and getting engaged is a great step in that direction. I just completed a Spanish language class in my efforts to make everyone I engage with feel welcome. Yes, continuing to support that kind of diversity that we all, as been stated, so appreciate here. And it also does come down to affordable housing. We're at risk of losing diversity if people can't move here.
Thank you. I don't think inequity is a challenge for this city that learned its lessons back in 1692, and every school child that went through the Salem school system was taught about what happens when you cross that line. The city was built on diversity. Its neighborhoods, its different ethnic backgrounds have made Salem what it is today, and we've thrived on our diversity and embraced our diversity. The challenge isn't the inequity part of it. The challenge is keeping it that way and maintaining the diversity of the city, which when it comes to affordability, that impacts where Salem is going to be going. So in my mind, I think that we should still keep our unique attitude towards our fellow citizens and continue to strive to keep Salem's unique diversity in its place. Thank you.
I am a formerly undocumented immigrant. I came to the United States when I was 12 years old from Brazil. I have been excluded from every possible table that I can possibly imagine, whether it's being excluded from my neighborhood, whether it's being excluded from an election, whether it's being told that I don't belong in the city, and even more recently being told that I shouldn't even be running for office because I'm formerly undocumented. I know how it feels to be excluded, but I also know how it feels to be included, to walk into a city hall and have a person look at me and say, "Oi, bom dia," or "Buena dia," and speak to me in a way that I understand. Or walk into a voter registration area once I became a US citizen in 2019 and see a voter registration in Spanish. It's not just principles and philosophy. We've got to take it from the philosophy that we have into action. We have to make sure that our resources are multilingual. Our website should be multilingual. Let's start there. People can't even access the website on multiple languages. We're very welcoming, we're very accessible, we're very approachable and a welcoming community, great community to be. But we got to take those philosophies and turn them into action so that we can make sure that future residents can really thrive and current residents can really thrive.
Thank you. Okay, Domingo. Seniors are a small part of Salem and have lived and worked here for most of their lives. Yet, the senior center is not accessible to all, and there is no designated senior housing in Salem. What can be done to improve the living conditions and quality of life for seniors in Salem?
That is a great question. I deeply care about seniors. I think they did it for us. It's time for us to do it. I have my mom and my grandma alive, and to me are the most precious thing that can happen. I think that Salem needs to continue to work on try to find especially housing, which is one of the biggest necessity that any human can have. For the most part, I see some of the organization working like this Councilor on Aging and the Friends of Councilor on Aging, but I think that we need to do more. We need to approach our senior, make sure that we know how they are. Try to not only on a daily basis, not only see them outside, but also visit them and make sure that their necessities being taken care. The city government, not only here in Salem, is not only to pass law. I think that we are a community, we are like a family, and we need to continue to improve in that and make sure that we continue to address the issues of our seniors.
Thanks. That's actually a great question. It's one that I think has come up to a lot of us from constituents. The Senior Center does great work, and the folks who use that really appreciate the Senior Center, and they do a great job over there. Not everybody uses the Senior Center, though. There's a lot of seniors in this community that don't choose to go down there, that don't find it to be an accessible location, or there's folks that are homebound that can't get there even if they wanted to go there. So I think that there's certainly a lot of room in this community for more outreach to our homebound seniors who are at home looking for companionship or just somebody to some activity. We could do a lot more work on that. There's a lot more opportunities I think we have as a community to encourage younger people to pair up with seniors. I think that Salem State has a program that does that pairs seniors and students together to sort of build relationships. I think that's something to continue to push on. And then also making Salem a walkable city. We need to be a city that supports walkability. And I see my father sitting over there. He would tell you we need more benches downtown and throughout Salem right now.
Alice.
Yes, thank you. Great question. I'm the council liaison to the Council on Aging, and it's really been very rewarding to be part of their efforts to have the Community Life Center utilized by more of our elder adults here in Salem. The events that I have volunteered for a long time really help address isolation for seniors and working on transportation options so more people utilize the Council on Aging and their events. We have the efforts of Salem for All Ages. Just very recently, they started a lockbox program with the police that they keep a key to your place for emergencies. During the COVID crisis, there was the Salem Together, thousands of phone calls made to seniors checking on their wellness, and also creating affordable housing for seniors. That's another area of my volunteer work, and the wait list for senior housing is years. So, more work needs to be done on that. I know.
Your time?
Sorry, but yes, definitely one of my passions to work on this.
Thank you. Bless you. Conrad.
I'm 69, do I have to recuse myself from this? We all know that the senior population is growing nationally, and Salem is a perfect example of that. I don't know the exact figures, but I know that Salem is compared to other cities and towns, we have more seniors in Salem than we do in our other local communities. I think the biggest, we've been trying to address the housing issue. We've addressed it with the ADUs. We're trying to address it with some of the affordability, working with the Salem Housing Authority to get Salem residents into the Salem housing. I think the number one problem that because of our large population and because of the roads and the traffic, it's transportation for the seniors to try to get around to their hospitals, their doctor's visits, to see their families. I think there's a lack of a organized transportation system that lets the seniors negotiate the city better. And I think I'd like to see them be a little bit more freer in that aspect. Thank you.
There's a lot of research that indicates that concentrating seniors in one location can be very beneficial for some who are extremely high need because of their health challenges, but that a lot of folks 55 plus want independence. They thrive in independence, and we ought to be encouraging that. But from a philosophical point of view, I do have to think back to being Brazilian. There is a philosophy in our culture where they're not seniors. We use the different word, we use elders, but not from the typical perspective that we tend to think of that word in English. An elder is your mentor. An elder is your past, but is a key to your future. It's the person you go to learn from and the person that guides you forward in the future so that you can be thriving as well. I think we need to make sure that our programs are integrating our elder population into them. For example, there's a really great program in Florida. Weird to quote Florida as a possible good example, but I'll go there. They are working with the senior population to be at the daycares, to be in the elementary schools, to be in the middle schools, and provide tutoring or teaching different things in life, or just be painting with them. There are great ways that we can integrate our elder community inside of our community instead of excluding them, but I would also be supportive of having a 55 plus community area in the city.
Thank you.
I was very privileged recently to speak to a bunch of folks that work in COA, and they really expressed to me the desire for their work to be taken out from under the Parks and Rec Department to really give it the respect that it deserves. I absolutely think that we need dedicated senior housing. It's concerning that all of our housing has really stagnated, but we absolutely need dedicated senior housing. It really concerns me when I'm walking around every day and talking to seniors who are now on that fixed budget and trying to navigate the issues of rising housing costs along with everything else, healthcare, groceries, and how much of a struggle that is. I'm privileged to volunteer for Meals on Wheels and H-SPAN and see personally for myself the amount of food insecurity that's there. So when we're having these conversations we've been having tonight about housing insecurity, food insecurity, we're not just talking about young people that are getting their start, we're talking about people that really shouldn't be placed in that position, and it's really important to think about seniors during those conversations as well.
Okay, our last question of the evening, and we start with Ty. On average, 30% of Salem residents voted in the last municipal elections. Please outline some ideas you have that can enhance voter engagement in the elections.
Yeah, and Salem is unfortunately in line with a lot of area communities. This has been an issue across the board. I think that if you look at the wards in Salem that vote in the highest numbers, it's the wards that are walkable. Like it is Ward 2, it's Ward 1, the places where we have a polling station that's nearby. I think that increasing, ensuring that our polling locations are near bike paths, accessible sidewalks, that they have a place for people to drive if they need to. I think those are important things probably to increase voter participation. I think things like this increase voter participation. We're seeing, October is a whirlwind in Salem, but I think that folks are starting to pay attention now and starting to wonder who's running. I'm seeing that at the doors, more engagement around those sort of things. So increasing these. Then last night we had a Spanish language debate, which I think was incredible for doing this in a different format that's more accessible to more people throughout the city. So I think just continue to do those things and reaching out to different communities is important.
Yes, we definitely need to raise the voter engagement. If we want really to have everybody represented, then we need to work on this. I do appreciate the city's efforts. I think early voting, that has really been helpful. I think they've given a lot of education. They've really tried to show people the options that they have for voting, vote by mail. I think this is all really helpful, and we need to keep increasing that. This is also one reason I'm really grateful to the Chamber and the League of Women Voters, and last night, the North Shore CDC, the Latino Leadership Coalition, working on getting everyone engaged. And it's also a reason I really enjoy door knocking. Not only is it great to talk to our residents, mostly I answer questions about voting. There's an election coming up, who's running, what does the councilor at large do? So that is very rewarding for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Earlier, just before I came here, I was talking with some friends out in the hall, and we were talking about voter apathy and scratching our heads because that wasn't what Salem was not too long ago. We used to turn out 50, 60% during our elections, and everybody was engaged in local politics. I used to tell people that for a city this size, it was the politics, it was like small town politics. Everybody had an opinion, everybody participated, and we were scratching our heads trying to figure out, what's really going on? Is it because of the national political atmosphere? Is it the frustration of the people who just don't care anymore about coming out to vote? It is a sin, and it's discouraging. I'm glad the question was asked because I personally don't know what to do to help people come out and vote. But basically, please do. Other countries, some countries pay their people to vote. Some countries fine their people who don't vote. We've also talked about ranked choice voting, but the thing over here is it's the attitude, it's the atmosphere, and that's something that has to be changed on a national level. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's two categories of ways to answer this question. One starts with what we, or hopefully I, can eventually deliver. and what we are delivering as a city, and then number two, the policies that we actually are implementing to improve enfranchisement of voters. On the delivery, can you imagine how difficult it might be for somebody who's seen government do nothing their whole lives for their interest to vote? For a lot of ways, I'm surprised I'm engaged, because that's how I've seen my whole life, government not working for me. Now, that's really important. We need to make sure government works better for people. So how can we do that? A lot of the policies that we can implement are actually at the state level, whether it's making election day a holiday, or making sure that the voter registration is automatic, or making sure that we have election day registration. Those are all state level policies that we can't touch, but I would be a very vocal voice to make sure that those get done at the state level. At the local level, we can do ranked choice voting. I am fully supportive of ranked choice voting. We can make sure that we are reevaluating the concepts of where people vote. In a time where people aren't just, going back home to work all the time, maybe our system of single polling locations isn't good enough anymore, and we have to make sure that we have additional polling locations for voting options. So I would be very supportive of those ideas.
Thank you.
I think a driver of excitement towards voting happens from having diverse people and diverse candidates. People want to see people that look like them and are, excited and have a sense of urgency about the issues that affect them. It's not every day that young people have someone in their 20s that's running, and I have seen how exciting that is when I talk to people on college campuses. I'm in favor of every idea to make voting easier, not harder. It might not be in our purview, but voting really needs to be a state holiday. We need vote by mail and early voting in every single election. We need to do everything we can to make that as accessible, and not just only go to doors of people in Salem that vote in every single election. Like I said, I go to the Point neighborhood. I try to talk to every single person I can. I talk to young people that haven't voted in a single election yet, because that's what we need to do. We need to bring more people into the process.
Thank you. Coming from a country where democracy is not always at the best, I think that here sometimes we take it for granted, the power of voting. I believe strongly that we need to partner up with organizations and individuals who are actually expert on how to bring people to vote. I think Salem State University have a great department of civic engagement. We need to partner with Salem State. We need also to make a little bit better job as a government, as a city councilor, to try to not only come out on election time, we need to get involved with the community, especially with the youth, to make sure that they understand the importance of civic engagement. So I'm proposing every time I got the opportunity to say something about this, I'm proposing community meetings, and where we not only address the issue, but also we encourage and motivate the youth so they can be part of the system. They can be candidates. I commend the new candidate that we have here. We need to see more diversity. We need to make sure that everybody get involved. This is very important. This is the democracy. This is the only way that the regular people have to say and make sure that elect people that will conduct the destiny of the city. Local government is very important, and we need to address that strongly. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our debate. Let's have a round of applause for our candidates. And thank you to Salem Access TV and to the Hawthorne Hotel and to the League of Women Voters and the Frederick Berry Institute for their support and for the difficult task of keeping us on time. So again, it was a good question to end on. Please, please, please vote. The election is November 7th, but you can vote early. Not often, but early. So please get out there and vote, and thank you very much.